How's it going, guys? Isaiah's here. I just wanted to make a video addressing something that I saw from a very well-known figure in the fitness industry, and it's Elliott Hulse. I want to go through some points that he brought up in a recent post that he made on January 9th, and he was essentially talking about the game changers and how veganism is bad in a few different ways. So I just wanted to, address what he said. And first off, before I even get into Elliott Hulse, I want to speak about the Game Changers briefly here. The Game Changers is a documentary that came out recently, essentially putting veganism, on a pedestal in a lot of ways, and it sparked a lot of publicity. It got a lot of attention, and it led to what is probably one of the most viewed vegan versus omnivore debates that has been watched to this day on the Joe Rogan podcast, with a guy by the name of Kresser versus James Wilkes, who I believe was the producer of the Game Changers. I could be wrong on that. But that debate now has over 2.5 million views, and a lot of people who have seen that debate, given that in many ways it seemed like James Wilkes was shown to be on the lesser side of knowing what he was potentially talking about. A lot of people are using that as fuel, for an argument against veganism, so to speak. And yeah, so there are a lot of things, to really go through when it comes to speaking about the Game Changers film. But I just want to say that when I post this video, I'm going to post this systematic analysis of the debate between Wilkes and Kresser that is done by a medical doctor by the name of Dr. Avi. And if you are one of the people who saw that debate and you thought Kresser had a lot of good points, this analysis is extremely objective. It doesn't take sides, and it looks at the facts, it looks at the studies for what they are. This is a medical doctor who literally went through every single point in the debate and looked at the studies that they were talking about. And he is an extremely well-versed man in the medical literature, this Dr. Avi, and he understands this to the T. Well, like what these studies are speaking of, how the studies were done, what kinds of studies, how they need to be looked at in conjunction with other studies, what is the strengths and weaknesses of the types of studies that were done. All of that good stuff. If you are somebody who is seriously interested in the nitty-gritty details of these discussions, it is a 7-hour-long video. I still haven't even finished it personally, but the analysis is extremely, extremely thorough. And essentially, Kresser, via simply looking at the facts of these studies, is made to look like he doesn't know what he's talking about. But in the debate, he looked somewhat good. In the second, there was a follow-up debate as well, in which Kresser looked very, very weak. Especially in the later aspect of the debate itself. That being said, let's get into, and I'm just gonna, kind of go point by point here, not get like too deep into it. I don't want this video to be extremely long. It's just I know Elliott Hulse is a well-known figure. So that being said, he said there's a documentary destroying America. You might have heard of it. It's called Game Changers. I say it's destroying America because it's convincing Americans to become vicious vegans. I want to address that point right now. If you call vegans vicious and militant, I seriously would ask you to reconsider the usage of those terms when speaking of vegans, and look at the incredible irony of using such a thing. Okay, calling somebody a vicious vegan when a vegan, the ideology itself, is seeking to reduce all forms of suffering, is incredibly stupid, honestly, at the end of the day. It doesn't make any sense calling somebody a vicious vegan. If you're calling somebody a vicious vegan because they challenge your beliefs, maybe delineate that. but calling somebody a vicious vegan just by virtue of what they believe in doesn't make any sense at all, considering that veganism seeks to reduce suffering. So that term and militant vegan, it's honestly, I can't, they're just so dumb. They don't hold any water. If anything, you can consider yourself more vicious than a vegan because you're adding to mass slaughter of animals by supporting animal agriculture with the money that you spend in grocery stores buying animal products. So, that being said, next point. Veganism turns men into women. What is the evidence behind this? And my assumption when somebody always says this is that they're talking about the phytoestrogens that are in some plant foods. If you were to look, and soy is probably the biggest talked about issue. So much so that Paul Joseph Watson, he was once pretty popular political figure. He kind of fell off the map. I'm not sure if he's even still around. He coined the term soy boy, which is funny. It has a nice ring to it, and for a lot of people it's stuck. And anytime I get into a discussion with somebody as a vegan, I get called a soy boy like 8 times out of 10 now. That being said, veganism turns men into women. The studies and their conclusions that they've come to this date, generalizing them now, have come to the point where soy has not been shown conclusively to elevate estrogen levels in men, especially to the point where it's causing things like gynecomastia or any sort of significant impact in other hormone levels. Nothing like that. You might have a better argument for beer. The phytoestrogens that are in alcohol, beer, the hops that are in beer, that has more evidence behind rays actually affecting hormone levels. But when it comes to just typical plant foods that one would consume in their diet, there's not a whole lot of evidence to show that they are actually increasing hormone levels. It's really inconclusive. So that being said, consume the soy you want to. I consume soy pretty much every day. I think I'm okay. I'm not losing any strength now. So, next point. Makes people skinny fat. Where is the evidence for this claim? Makes people skinny fat. I will say, to kind of, and I try to be fair in in the points that I make with this kind of stuff. Makes people skinny fat. Some people, especially beginners, some people who are, they're really gung-ho about just getting into veganism, but they haven't done a whole lot of research on it. They're not really well informed of how to properly plan a diet in general. Usually these people, they don't know much about nutrition, just generally speaking, and they'll jump into something like veganism, which you need to plan appropriately. But they could literally jump into all kinds of diets and not know what the hell they're doing. They just heard some person talking about it and the amazing results they got and how they felt. And they'll just jump straight into it, not knowing what the hell to do, and they'll just follow popular figures in the way they eat. They'll follow stupid crap like fruitarian diets and raw food diets and carnivore diets and all this stuff, and keto diets, and just take a lot of things to the extreme. A lot of these people just simply are ill-informed, and they don't do a lot of research like they should before adopting a serious lifestyle change. That being said, there are people who do become skinny fat doing a vegan diet, but there are people who become, skinny fat doing all kinds of diets, and they end up having a lot of health complications by virtue of the fact that they simply don't know what they're doing. So that being said, veganism by itself, a properly planned vegan diet will not make you skinny fat. If you say it does, please show me the evidence behind this claim, because I have not seen any. They're missing essential nutrients. This is blatantly false. This myth refuses to die. When people are talking about how a vegan diet is nutrient deficient, and that gets into a point that I seriously want to just kill off the bat right now. So many times, B12 is the biggest topic of contention when it comes to somebody adopting a vegan diet. They'll say, "Oh, well, you need to supplement a vegan diet. You need to supplement B12." Let's concede that for the sake of this discussion, right? Because I will say, having looked at studies, that there's not a whole lot of evidence that we got B12 by other forms like the soil or the water or anything like that back in the days of our ancestry. That being said, if and people say, well, and to add to this, people say, I want to get my nutrition from natural foods, right? Natural foods. Yeah, your meat is pumped full of hormones. you know, antibiotics just so it can live to be slaughtered. So that being said, if I were to show you that you have better long-term health outcomes on a diet in which you had to supplement a couple of vitamins, maybe even as much as 3 or 4, right? If I were to show you that you have better, that in studies across the board, there are better long-term health outcomes with the supplementation versus a diet that quote unquote has the vitamin naturally in the food, but you have worse health outcomes in the long term, what is the reasoning for you to not adopt a diet with the supplement and adopt a diet that has the worst health outcome but comes from you eat natural foods? So I just really want to address that idea very quickly, you know, because a lot of times when people are talking about veganism, you know, especially with the rise of meat substitutes, which Elliott mentions here so, briefly, you know, they'll talk about, oh, it's not natural, it's not natural, it's not natural. Okay, just because something is natural does not make it healthy. Let's say for argument's sake that your meat is natural. It also contains compounds naturally which give you increased risk of chronic disease. So we can see that your natural foods are making you sick. And not only that, but when controlled for calorie intake as well, omnivore diets have been shown to lead to increased weight gain even when controlled for calories. So your food is making you fat, it's making you sick, and you're arguing against something like a whole foods plant-based diet by saying that it's not natural and you need to take a supplement. Well, even if you do have to take a supplement, let's just say B12, even if you do have to supplement it, you are still going to have better long-term health outcomes as a result of that diet, even though you have to supplement B12. Okay, so even if, quote unquote, there's not a natural food that has B12 in it, you are still going to be healthier long term. Just supplement the freaking B12. What is the big deal? It is not difficult to take a pill or even a liquid-based sublingual supplement in terms of B12. Just take cyanocobalamin. In certain places, you can get them dirt cheap. So affordability is not a very good option. You can also get B12 in fortified foods. It's really not difficult to get. Okay, so that getting out of the way. Meat substitutes cause cancer. Okay, there is some validity to this. You know, nobody, I think, has made the argument that a lot of meat substitutes are healthy. If there are people making that argument, well, you know, I gotta disagree with you there, brother or sister. A lot of these things are very high in fat. They're fried foods. They're very processed. They have preservatives, all that jazz. Not to say in and of itself that a preservative is going to be bad for you, but generally speaking, they are highly processed foods, and they, you know, cooked oils and things like that have been shown to have negative effects, even though it's vegetable oils. Even, you know, even in your vegan products, you have cooked oils, and those are not healthy for you. So, and also with the recent you know, popularity of things like the Impossible Burger, you know, they used a plant-based form of heme iron, which when studied, it actually shows it's been shown to be very similar to having the effects of animal-based heme iron, you know, increasing your risk of things like cancer and heart disease. So yeah, I will say that has some credence. You know, meat substitutes cause cancer, right? But be fair in your assessment. If you're gonna say meat substitutes cause cancer, then look at your damn animal products too and say the same thing. Don't be partial to animal products because they are not healthy. Vegan brains don't get the fuel they need to run at full power. This is absolutely stupid. Where is the evidence to show this? The overwhelming majority of your carbohydrate sources are going to be vegan, so it's really not difficult to get enough calories. Most days, I need to lose a little bit of weight, to be honest with you. It is not difficult to get enough calories on a vegan diet. You just have to eat. It's like, damn. Bananas, potatoes, you know, all kinds of grains. You know, I could go on and on. Oats, you name it, quinoa, farro, rice, pasta, keep going, right? You have all kinds of carbohydrate sources. So it's really not difficult, and you have all kinds of protein sources and fat sources too, healthy fats that you can eat. So that doesn't really hold any water. Let me lubricate my tongue for a second. It's harder to build muscle mass and strength. This is I'll give a little bit of leeway to this point. In terms of protein intake, you know, on average, animal products do contain a denser protein profile in terms of, you know, how much protein you get for the amount of food that you eat, so to speak. You know, chicken breast, things like beef are very, and milk, they're protein dense foods, right? Animal products, meats, fish, they tend to be pretty protein dense foods. So typically speaking, the amino acid profiles are better in the sense that they have more of them. Not that they're like higher quality or anything like that, but they have more amino acids in them. That being said, it's a very simple solution. Just eat a little. It's not even like anything crazy. Just eat a little bit. If you're trying to bulk, eat more protein. Like if you, let's say, were to get 100 grams from animal products, just get like 130 from plant-based products. And I'm making it like really like dumbed down right there when I say that. Just eat more protein. I mean, that's the simplest way I could put it without making this video too long. Just eat more protein. It's really not that difficult. It's harder to build muscle mass and strength. Like it's just get a little bit more protein, man. That's it. And he said, I could go on and on as to why being a vicious vegan is suboptimal. He doesn't provide any evidence for this. Makes a man soft and weak. By what measure? I mean, there are literally vegan strongmen and vegan Olympic athletes to this day. So it doesn't, there are plenty of vegans, on YouTube and stuff like that who have been, vegans for decades even, and they're extremely athletic. They don't have any loss of muscle mass or strength. Vegan bodybuilders, all kinds of athletes. He uses flawed arguments to get his point across. Not really. It spouts lies of omission. Where's the evidence? It convolutes the information it uses to make arguments. No. And then he goes into more specific situations. I haven't actually seen the Game Changers personally. I've seen so much like vegan media at this point that I'm not even worried about catching like the latest, docu-series that comes out there. I've already seen so much by now that my convictions concerning veganism are pretty solidified in terms of the health aspect, diet aspect, ethical aspect. So I don't really need to see anything else by this point. Let me see if there's anything worth addressing. Continuing to read this. Okay, here's one. Parents are converting to vicious veganism and forcing it upon their children, which results in brutal, weak, mentally undeveloped children. Where is the evidence for this claim, man? This is, it's just so funny when you understand how to properly plan a diet and you see how unearthly simple it can actually be to plan a vegan diet. And then you see crap like this from somebody who's been in the fitness industry for the longest time, and they're perpetuating such bull crap. It's hilarious. It's hilarious, but it's also dangerous. It's also dangerous. And you're talking about forcing this upon your children. Hey, Elliott, if your kids told you they wanted to eat a vegan diet, would you force them to eat meat? I think you would probably force them to eat meat because you're a bit of a dick. That being said, every parent is going to try to, using the word enforce might be a little strong, but, your kids live in your house. You run your house a certain way. Your kids are going to adopt the habits that you have, especially in the beginning stages of their life. That being said, will parents who are vegan feed their kids a vegan diet? Yes. Is there any evidence to show that this is going to be harmful to children? Absolutely not. And before somebody says it, breast milk is vegan. Human breast milk is vegan. You are not exploiting your mother. Your mother gives you consent to feed on her breast milk. So, you know, a lot of people will just say, oh, well, breast milk comes from an animal. It's vegan because of the issue of consent. Animals cannot openly consent. So that's one of the primary reasons why it's not vegan to consume animal products. So yeah, vegan breast milk, and there's all kinds of, you can make all kinds of little mashes and stuff like that to feed infants and toddlers and stuff like that. It is not difficult to feed your child a vegan diet. It really isn't. You do a little bit of research and you'd be surprised what you can come up with. Like, you have loads of options, believe me. So yeah, forcing it upon your children results in brittle, weak, mentally underdeveloped children. Again, brittle, weak, mentally underdeveloped by what, like, measure? Where is the evidence for this? There are people, again, who do not know what they're doing, who will try to, you know, feed their kids all kinds of diets. And this goes for omnivore diets, too. You know, I wish I was never fed dairy, because I developed lactose intolerance at an early age, around 12, 11 years old. And I didn't realize it for the longest time that I was lactose intolerant until I was about 16 years old. And when I stopped drinking dairy at around 18, stopped consuming dairy, this was before I went full vegan, my energy levels, my acne went away in like a damn week. It was ridiculous, the turnaround as to how fast my skin cleared up after I stopped consuming dairy products. But as far as, you know, parents forcing things on their kids, you know, and it having negative effects, even as omnivores, you feeding your kids animal products, you don't know what you're doing, right? And so you're feeding your kids these diets, especially in more developed countries, first world countries, where you're making them obese and you're giving them too much of negative things in their food, and they're having all kinds of negative health effects. But, you know, because everybody hates veganism, you know, you never hear this sort of reasoning with omnivore diets, right? You only hear it when it comes to veganism, when you have a stupid couple who tried to feed their kid nothing but freaking soy milk, and their kid ended up dying because they're too stupid to do a bit more research and feed their kid a few more foods in order to keep that child nice and healthy. So it's already been established by very well-accredited health organizations that a vegan diet is suitable for all stages of life, even through athletic ventures. And, you know, you just have to make sure that you're doing things the right way. You know, that you're feeding your kids everything they need to be fed. Look at nutritional labels. Look and do some research as to health effects of consuming certain foods. Make sure your kids aren't allergic to anything that they're consuming. Make sure your kids aren't lactose intolerant, which most people are. You know, at a certain age, especially once you start, you know, getting near puberty, you know, that lactose intolerance will begin to rear its ugly head very strongly. And I think that was one of the main reasons why I didn't, you know, feel good during my athletic career in high school. I was doing weight training and I was wrestling, and I felt like complete trash all the time. I was drinking dairy, probably at least damn near half a gallon's worth of dairy almost every single day, and I felt like absolute crap all the time. Okay, not to say that that's the same experience for everybody. I'm not saying that it is. It's just that's been my personal experience with dairy, and I know that many other people have that same experience as well. So, that being said, let's see. What can we do about this? He says, keep eating meat, keep eating man, and keep embodying strength. And then he plugs his workout program. And he says, veganism just won't cut it. Yeah, that's BS. So essentially, I've gone through all the notable points, minus some of the points where, you know, he speaks about specific examples in the Game Changers film. So, yeah, that's pretty much that. I hope you learned something. This video is over 24 minutes long now. If you listen to everything I said, I appreciate it. If you want to have a discussion about anything I brought up, please feel free to let me know. I don't post that many videos anymore, so I try to make it something worthwhile. I know Elliott Hulse is popular. So, until next time, y'all, let me know if you think of anything you want to talk about. Y'all have a good one.